agenda script. Evening, everyone. This is Robert Stevenson. It is 6 p.m. on Monday, March the 2nd. We're going to call to order the Regional School District School Committee meeting for this evening. Can I get a motion to enter into the meeting?
So moved. Second.
All right. Can I get a show of hands to enter into the meeting? Let the record show the motion passes 5-0-0. Can I get everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. So, you're going to put a call out to Liz LaFond here in 4 minutes. We have an item on our agenda this evening to talk about our superintendent search that we need to start looking at. And Liz is going to give us sort of a, in the spirit of the State of the Union, Liz is going to give us sort of a state of the grounds out there in the areas with what kind of options there are out there for superintendents and what kind of options we should be looking at. So let's see, what do we got? Consent agenda. Anybody got any questions on that before we move forward? Right. Warrants. We don't have a bucket here.
See a bucket.
We got any warrants?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
So
sorry.
we'll have a bucket in a little bit, so everybody can sign up on that. Do we have anything for correspondence? Superintendent is not here with us this evening. Nothing for correspondence. Okay. We have no students here, so we don't have a student advisory report. What is going on? Here we go. We're going to be we're going to have a full boat with school committee members tonight too. All right, so it's 6:02. We are here early. You guys start on. Okay, so let's see if we can get a hold of Liz. I'll get her there. So here we go. Here is her number. I don't want to read that aloud. I don't need to dox her. I don't want to have Liz's phone number read aloud on the recording.
Yes, I don't think she'd appreciate it. Johnny. Like when you broke his wrist.
Hi Liz, it's Rob Stevenson in the school committee here in Southwick, Granville. How are you?
My favorite school committee.
All right, just so that you know, this is being recorded on YouTube once we get this done, so everybody in the entire state will know that now. So good or bad, you're now locked in. So I'm expecting that to go viral. So we'll see. Well, we're gonna find out. She said it. We got it recorded. So I mean, this is what we're one up. Liz, what I was hoping that you could give us is we're going to have a discussion this evening. I know you and I have spoken about this. We're looking at starting our search for our new superintendent, as Superintendent Willard has indicated that next year she's looking to sort of step down. And I'm looking to see if you can kind of give the school committee here a lay of the land of what is really realistically out there from an external perspective for viable candidates, because I know you've been highly involved with a number of searches in the state recently.
I would say this, in the western part of the state, both the number of candidates and their readiness for the position is lower than is healthy. In the eastern part of the state, we tend to get more applicants, but not necessarily applicants who have previously been superintendent, or even applicants who have previously had central office work. We see principals, we see people who have had no experience at all in K-12 public education, and then we see the occasional well-qualified candidate. in Western Mass.
So now, there's a number of districts right now that are either in interim superintendents or have gone back to the drawing board. I heard Gil Montague's going back to the drawing board now.
Gil Montague is going back to the drawing board. They're going to restart their search in probably September. And that, as you know, new superintendents settle in, there's always somewhat of a shift of central office staff and some others who are looking for new opportunities.
Okay.
But I say some because it has, I've never known it to be this low ever.
So another thing that we've spoken about in the past is sort of looking internally to see if we have viable candidates inside the district that are looking for that. And you were, when I first brought that up to you, you made a comment to the effect that that was obviously, even from an MASC perspective, your guys' first recommend, like that's the ideal route.
Right? If you have a superintendent who was innovative and we were thinking to grow that talent from inside, you're already ahead of the race. That has for a very long time, not just recently, been our first recommendation, because if you have somebody from the inside who's prepared and ready to step into the leadership role, you lose no momentum on the current programs and initiatives that are doing well in your district, right? You also at the same time do get a fresh set of eyes. You get a set of eyes from somebody who hasn't been making all the decisions, but has perhaps been part of the decision. And maybe bringing some, again, fresh eyes to the situation. We find that if there is somebody well qualified in the district already, you are ahead of the game. And if that individual in the district already has a good working relationship with the committee, you're almost in a win-win situation. Now, twice last year I did searches for districts who were hesitant to simply go ahead and hire their internal because they wanted to see who was out there. And so they went through the time, the effort, and the expense to do a search, and both here in Western Mass hired their internal candidate, and they both got very, very excellent superintendents.
And if you're in that spot, where the internal candidate's already there, and we've got a little bit of runway before Jen is leaving, that opens up an opportunity, I know, where we could theoretically put somebody into like a superintendent-elect position.
That's right. And so if it were a case where the person were not already certified, that would be a case where the individual could get the number of hours they need to fulfill that certification requirement. Typically, I think they say 300 hours supervised internship. And if that person's already certified, even better.
Pam's got a question for you.
Yeah, so could you speak a little bit, Liz, to what that superintendent-elect role looks like and what the benefits of it are?
Well, I would say that we don't see it too often. Some of it has to do with turnover of school committee members who haven't quite learned their roles or don't understand the responsibility ahead with the new superintendent. Some don't want to perhaps pay an additional stipend to the person to do both, if you will, their current work and or train somebody in their current work while training to be the superintendent. But if it's a district that is in the position to do that, again, you've got somebody right on board that can help to bring their professor right up to speed and keep them rolling along. Again, no loss of any time or movement in the right direction for your students. And it's typically a stipend. that you would pay the individual to sort of bridge both roles.
Okay. So people don't hire a replacement for whatever that their former position was. They remain in their current position, but then get a stipend for sort of doing the job shadowing aspect of, am I hearing that correctly?
So there's two ways to do it. That is one, yeah. And the other way to do it is, take your time, do a thorough search for that person's replacement, and when you're ready to hire, right, you're not in any rush. When you found the right person, you can bring them on board, whenever you're ready to do so. Maybe it's not until the end of the next year, or maybe it's sometime in the spring of the next year, so that there is time working with that person, and the onboarding makes the transition seamless.
Can I go back to, yeah, no, that is helpful. Going back to what you mentioned before about the two districts that you've recently worked with, that had good qualified internal candidates, but still felt it prudent to do a search. Do you know how much money and time they spent on their search?
Well, it sure do. The search with MASC is 10,500, and it can take anywhere from 3 months to 4 or 4+ months. And it involves engaging individuals in a search committee. It takes as much or as little time as the committee wants to put into the work. So if you don't do that, there's a savings. And I also wanted to mention that this year, Jen Boyek over in South Hadley, finishing her first year as the superintendent there. South Hadley chose, understanding that, not the superintendent who came in to fill an urgent need when the previous superintendent they hired through a search fell short. So that person stayed for a couple of years, and they really came to lean in and trust the person who was the assistant superintendent for finance, who was also interested in the position, and the interim superintendent wanted to leave to pursue work closer to home because it was a very long commute for that person. And so the school committee in South Hadley did a few things. They had a conversation with the applicant. Obviously, the applicant was interested. They set up a few meet and greets around town, so that, for instance, at town hall and at local senior center and one at each school, so that people could meet and talk with the person, and they gathered feedback, and the feedback was overwhelmingly supportive. Now, when I say this, there's always going to be some retractors in the process, right? That's almost goes without saying. But the support for the internal candidate was overwhelming. And when they went through that process themselves, and no cost to them, I just helped guide them through that. They still saved the 10.5. They then did a public interview with the candidate, and hired her. And as far as I know, other than the same budget struggles we're all facing, the schools are doing, what everybody would have expected them to do. They're continuing to plug away and move forward.
All right.
I have one last question, Liz. In looking at the materials that you sent us about what Mask offers to support in a superintendent search, if we were to go that route, it details, like what kind of supports are provided for that. This says 11.5, not 10.5, by the way.
Well, there you go. I understand.
But then on the backside, it does offer, the free at no charge technical assistance should we choose to do it ourselves. Could you just give us like a quick overview of like the major difference between like what we would get for the 11,500 versus the no cost support but do it yourself? Like basically, what's the big heavy lifting that the committee would take on, instead of paying that 11.5 to mask?
See, what happens is typically someone in central office takes on the additional work. South Hadley being Southwick, they're not fortunate to be my favorite school committee because I'm also retiring, but you know, staying available to help where I'm needed. What we would do is typically not be on site in the district, which is a big time and reimbursement savings. But we would continue to be your consultants to talk to anybody in the district who needed to do anything like arrange, say, meet and greets. You know, we could talk them through that and how all that happens. We could create a survey either before you start the process or once the meet and greet, you know, to determine what people are looking for in the next superintendent. And or during the process of the meet and greets to gather feedback from people who attend those meet and greets. We would just provide you with all the data and, you know, you're essentially saving 11.5 because nobody's traveling. We're not collecting, you know, nationally searches. We're not then once we get names of people we don't know because it is. Yeah, I mean, we're in an economic downturn, and we have had a number of applications from out of state that we've had to, you know, do some pre-check employment checks on, and that can take a lot of time finding the right people to speak with. So there's a lot of work in a search that we would do for the money and be on site. Conducting those sort of what do you want to see in your next superintendent kind of interviews, and conducting all of the sessions, you know, being present for all of the sessions with the search committee and the school committee.
So, sorry, you're talking, raised one last question. I swear it's my last one.
No,
She's
sorry.
got a meeting she's gotta go to, so we
Okay.
don't wanna.
So you mentioned that you've done a lot of this process in Western Massachusetts recently. Are you seeing the same applicants over and over and over again for those multiple superintendent positions?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So essentially, you've already done the screening.
Well, that doesn't mean that the school committee is satisfied that we've done the screening for the candidates that we've seen, and they want to, still see the screening. We don't always see the same external candidates from out of state. For instance, the better the district, the more draw, right? Sometimes people from out of state who think they understand the regional district in Mass will apply in Mass, but you know their experience is quite a bit different than what it is here in Mass. So yeah, yes and no.
Okay. I swear
All right.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I really appreciate this. This is gonna be very helpful when we get to this point here in about 15, 20 minutes, maybe longer. Longer. Nick's looking at me doing longer.
I'll do any way that you need help, but I will say that as a school committee member myself, if my district was fortunate enough to have an internal who we knew, who we trusted, who we could work well with, who we knew could handle the work, that's a no-brainer. From my standpoint of a person who works with school committees. And I'm sorry I said that, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
No, we appreciate it, Liz. All right, listen, have a great night. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll be talking more.
You got it.
All right, bye-bye now. All right. Oh.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so Nick, you're up, bud. Let's hear what we got. The state said that they're gonna give us $500,000 and everything's good, right?
Well, everything might be. We just gotta get it up there. And is that being shared in the Zoom meeting?
Yeah.
It's such a share in that. Yeah.
There we go. Oh, hit the screen. Yep.
I think you gotta hit budget
The other one.
presentation.
No, now you're screen sharing, so now you're good.
This goes back out.
Yeah.
This goes.
You can make it bigger.
And just do what you're doing before. Now you got the green one, so you're good.
All right, let me preface this by saying that what I'm going to present tonight is a level serviced budget. It's basically keeping the same amount of staff we have now. More or less the same costs we have now, but what that's gonna look like next year. Of course, there's a little bit of flavor in there, but I'll get to that as we go. I'm certain there'll be questions during this. I think it would probably be best if we wait till I'm done with each slide, just so I don't forget to say something in the middle of I'll be as brief as I possibly can because Rob said 20 minutes, you're having a discussion about it. All right, so I'm just going to start with a little bit from the state aspect there. The governor's House 2 budget came out about a month ago. Our Chapter 70 funding is more or less flat. We're at this point getting the minimum per pupil increase of $75. That may go up in this current year. It's $150. It usually kind of moves around a bit as it goes through the state budget process, but even if it does double, that's still not, it's gonna go like $89,000 more dollars. It's immaterial. The required local contribution for the towns, however, pops up $581,546 from this current year. And part of the reason for that is to start right-sizing things after last year's. You'll recall that it not only didn't go up at all, but it went down about $300,000 because of the vocational situation. So that right there is an attempt to start right-sizing, which is good. Projected regional transportation reimbursement about $720. I mean, that's based on the number of kids you got taking the bus, and as our enrollment declines, bus riders decline. Rural aid right now is at 20 million for the state. This current year it's 12 million for the whole state, which did hurt us. We lost about $97,000 under what we had budgeted. There is a push, there's advocacy. If that number, I mean, they say it should be 60 million, but if it stays at 20, I'll be okay with what we get next year. We won't know that number till like November. They never come out, but I'm good with that. If it comes,
Which would be an increase from what we had.
Correct. Yeah.
And what we even got budgeted.
Yeah, because last year it was 16 million for the state. So what we got last year worked well for us. So 20 million would work better. Our choice and charter tuitions, however, increased $250,000. We've now got 10 kids in charter schools and a few more choiced out. And it's not so much going to other districts, it's kids going to virtual schools like TECA and what's the other one? Commonwealth Virtual, I believe. So that, because that's more expensive than the $5,000 you're paying for a student to say go to Westfield High. It's like 13,000 or something like that. And there's a state administrative fee that gets tacked on. Our foundation enrollment decreased another 24 students this year, going down to 1180, which I looked, you'll see a chart in a few slides over time what that looks like. Our projected enrollment of kids actually being here in our buildings next year looks like it'll be about 22 fewer students than now, based on the graduating seniors, smaller kindergartens lately, that kind of thing.
Nick, one question before you go on.
Sure.
The required minimal local contribution increase, is that spread amongst all three towns?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
If you add the three together, you get that number.
Got it. Thanks.
I think it's all in grade.
Nick, why is the choice so much more than charter? And is it capped in any way? I mean, for virtual, it's kind of crazy, but it's more than having a real bricks and mortar.
Kids go to virtual schools for a few reasons. I mean, some parents may feel their kids learn better that way. Some it has to do with activities that they do outside of school. I mean, you've got some kids that maybe are into equestrian or gymnastics, and the schedule for that may not coalesce with, a regular school schedule.
We've got a couple kids now that are doing hockey. And they're
Hockey,
going to virtual schools.
Yeah, because
Like
of,
one
yeah,
racing too.
Yeah, but in
Yeah,
terms
right.
of what the district has to pay for that.
Yeah, why, her question is,
Yeah,
why is that
oh.
more expensive than like
Oh,
actually
the state
sending
sets
them
those
to
rates, there's
private?
nothing we can do about that. I mean, the school committee can cap the amount of students that go to virtual schools at 1% of your entire enrollment. But there's two sides to that coin. In the one hand, it may save you a little bit of money because only X amount of kids can go. But on the other hand, sometimes you have students that, they're just for whatever reason not doing so well in public school and they may do well in a virtual school. And the other option is going to $100,000 private day school. So if you cap it, you run the risk of being exposed to a different
And we don't have too many of them right now.
We're not, we're just offering it that
Well, we're at about
They
1%.
apply for the actual chart, the virtual school.
So it's not like any kid can just set.
Yeah, no, they have.
They apply.
And there's
There's a
gotta be
reason, like
seats.
valid
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, it's, if we were to cap, we talked about this a couple months ago, if we were to cap it, now we're dealing with taking an opportunity away from somebody that really needs it, and is that the hill that we want to die on based on a budget of $29 million? It's not, we don't have 5 or 10% of the kids, but
Right.
then if we had like
I was just gonna say that.
okay, that's a
We
whole
just
different
had one.
subject.
We
We
we're
just hit
about
one.
at 1
Yeah.
right now.
Right
So-
now is the first time. In years past, we could not have it. We were not hitting that threshold. We're just hitting that threshold for the first time. And so we would this year be able to cap it for the first time if we really wanted to. Actually, I should say that this past year, we could have, for the first time, voted it.
But we can't control the cost anymore.
No,
No.
So.
No, the
So
state
it's-
says
it's an arbitrary decision anyway, and then the costs keep going up.
That's just a quick timeline for you. Public budget hearing here at Powder Mill in the cafeteria at 5:30 on March 18th. The following Saturday, the 21st, it's not on there, but the Southwick Saturday FinCom meeting will take place. I am available to visit Tolland and Granville if needed. Last year I went to Granville one night. But let me know if you feel my presence is necessary and I'll make it happen. March 23rd, school committee vote on budget. That would be 3 weeks from tonight. Between April and May, the state will bicker amongst themselves until they finally land on a budget. And then in May, the town meetings will happen. I don't know if there's dates yet for them. I'm sure.
Oh, there are.
But they're not on the website, so they're not
Meeting
easy
is
to
the
find.
third Tuesday in Southwick.
Okay, so that'll be like the
Which is a
19th.
week after the election, usually, right?
Right, by
Yeah.
statute.
Yeah,
19th.
and then usually Granville and Tolland are
Before
before
that.
Southwick
Right.
vote.
There's
Yeah.
a week before
Usually
weeks, yeah.
it's early May for
Which
us.
is my
Yeah.
NASBO week, which is, that gets dicey.
But also told.
And I'm a board member now, so,
Well, yeah, but that would be that would be their elections.
okay.
But
and then-
Tolland also has a pre-budget meeting where they go line by line through everything and explain everything. So, I mean, it'd be really helpful to have somebody there for that one. It was last year.
That's nice.
No, you have the same.
Yeah,
question
Jen
twice,
went
so-
last year. I didn't go last year.
No, you get them again at the public meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, the last couple of years, Tolland has been really happy because their overall cost has gone down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm talking about the general budget. This
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Specific.
That we can't control.
The animal catcher got this last year and this year.
So after your town meetings, provided the voting happens the way we'd like it to, budget will be done. A couple of initiatives that we're going to be working on for next year, and I'm going to let Aaron speak to these a little bit because your budget should, be based on what you're attempting to do with your district.
Yeah, so we are moving from the science of reading, which you've heard us talk about, to incorporating writing. So using the programs we have, but we're going to be doing a lot of PD, and the writing will be different than the science of reading because it's going to be teachers of all subjects. So you write no matter what you're in. And so all teachers will be involved in that, and that will begin starting from K to 8 and then slowly move up with the students. Also, we'll be looking at our multi-tiered system of support. That is something that you've kind of been a part of when you've heard about our data and how we're assigning kids, for example, to intervention groups. And so we're going to be growing that. So we have a pretty solid system that we use K-6, and we are now building upon that in 7, 8, 9. That's happening right now, and it's going to continue to grow upon. So we really need to invest in what this looks like across the entire district, strengthening our tier 1, all students receive tier 1, figuring out who needs support, that's tier 2, then determining who those supports aren't working for, and really specializing in instruction for the smallest group of students, tier 3.
And that piggybacks on the discussion we had at the last school committee meeting when you saw the data,
Right.
particularly
Yep.
in 7, 8, 9.
And so when we're talking interventionists, typically either math or ELA interventionists, are those working at the tier 3 level or are those working at the tier 2 level?
So currently we have them working in tier 2
Okay,
and sometimes tier 3. So we will differentiate between 2 and 3 based on the number of students. So for example, if you have a group of students, say 5 students who are receiving support 3 times a week for 20 minutes, that could be a tier 2. A tier 3 could be the same provider, but it might be I'm seeing 2 students for 30 minutes a week or 30 minutes a day every single day. So we don't go by the person, we go by what they're doing to
okay,
define
I
it.
got you. Yep, thank you.
Are you good, Aaron? Should I move?
I'm good,
Okay.
unless we have questions.
No.
So this is just the foundation enrollment decreasing over time. I mean, from FY13 is a while ago now, but even if you look at FY20, the first time we ever heard the term social distancing and 6 feet, we've lost 250 kids, and that it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But that's indicative of just the state. I mean, the state's enrollment is 15,000 less going into next year than it was this year. It's people moving out, it's lower birth rates.
Well, there was just an article that 750,000 people have left the state of Massachusetts over the last couple of years.
Yeah, this is a state people are moving. So here's your enrollment by town over the last couple of years. You can see the net loss. Southwick's lost 56 students in a couple of years. Tolland 11, you're down to 8 for next year. And then the Granville bounces up a little in FY27 there. When you see your assessment, you'll so now on to the numbers. This is probably going to be hard to see up here. You might want to look at your handout that you should have it in your packet, right?
Yeah.
But this is just, the general budget summary that you see every year. Basically, you see a balanced budget.
Yeah,
The
bottom left.
in the bottom left, yeah. If you could just move that out of, there we go. Thank you.
So you see, our total budget, if we present the level service budget to you, it's going to be $30,383,805. And that would, in the top section is the revenue that would balance that. I think that, the next few slides will give this in a little bit more detail. I know one thing you've tended to look at in the past is the percent changes between the different, cost centers. I mean, you can see administration, it goes up 540. It's nothing. I mean, it's almost less than last year. And the reason why is because there'll be less in salary reserve in FY27 because we're not currently negotiating with any of the bargaining units like we were a year ago. We will be negotiating with food service, but they're paid from a revolving account, so that money's not going to be reflected there. Employee benefits you see goes up, and that's insurance, health insurance, and dental wasn't too bad, but health insurance is going up 8%. Tuitions you can see go up quite a bit, and that's largely the choice in charter that I referenced previously. Transportation actually doesn't go up that much. Or sorry, maintenance. Maintenance it's really all salaries, the increase. Transportation went down. And that's because of the way that LPVEC assesses their routes. Basically, they have to do their budget based on what they're doing in the moment where they build the budget. So there's next year 5.55 routes for special ed transportation in the LPVEC assessment, because that's what we have now. If we have to add a bus next year, that number is not going to go up. That will come out in the FY28 wash. So you're kind of like a year behind there, which can be confusing because it's not built to actual, but That's why that's lower. Regular ed transportation went up a bit, and there's also some money in there for homeless transportation because that's something we generally haven't budgeted for. But this year we've got 2 students, and they're on their own van, and even though we cost share with the town that they're from, that's like a $20,000 bill, and we need to have money for it. So technology or insurance, that's like property and auto insurance. I don't anticipate that going up too much. Technology lease will go up a bit because some devices will be off lease and we're going to have to lease some more for next year, and we have to pay off the lease that we just did last year in 3 more year increments. So that is the explanation of that. The debt service is because we borrowed money this year for the design study for the boilers, which is happening as we speak. Debt service for the building project is really the same as this year. The schools go up quite a bit because of salary, because now that the teacher's contract is settled, we know what they will be making next year. So that money is in those cost centers instead of in general administration. And special ed goes up. A lot of it's salary, some of it's tuition.
So at the end of the day, we're at a 5% increase that equals almost $1.5 million.
Correct. Underneath here at the bottom is our predictions for grants and some of the revolving funds. I think Title I will be, we budgeted low for Title I this year. It came in at like 260, which, is good. I don't see it much higher than 231 next year. Title II and Title IV, I think will be around the same. Metco should be similar. I think that's similar most years, right, Aaron?
Yeah, I think I don't think it'll be 150. I think it'll be a little lower, but it should be close.
But not much lower. Cool. IDEA special ed grant is the big question mark. I don't want to go too high on that because I have no idea what the federal government's going to do with that money. We'll get obviously something, but we don't know what that looks like yet. Circuit breaker is next. We're going to spend more out of circuit breaker next year because we have it. You've seen in the last few years, we offset cost where we can with the different buckets of funding that we have. Circuit breaker historically has been kind of low, but we have the money now, and we got 109,000 extra in transportation over the summer because they fully funded it. That was unexpected. I mean, it was nice, but it was, that helps. So, we're not going to sit there on it and stockpile it. We're going to use some circuit breaker money instead of as much school choice as we've been using, because that's where the money is. And the more your special ed costs go up, the more your circuit breaker reimbursement's going to be. And you have to spend what you get or what you have left over from the previous year and the next year. Or also, well, technically for us, it goes to E&D, but if we were a municipal district, the city gets to take it. So you got to be mindful of that. I do propose using less school choice because we are going to run out of school choice money if we continue to use it the way we have been. I think we're okay at 826 or, maybe even a little higher if the committee deems necessary, but I wouldn't be looking at a 7-figure number from that revolving fund next year. And then rural aid, I'm going to shoot at 257 because we got dinged this year. If it's 20 million across the state, that number will be somewhere above 400.
But there'll be added expenses that we don't anticipate in this budget. That's what we're used that.
Correct.
So
yeah. I don't want to budget high for that because that is a number that changes during the state budget process. Are there any questions about this? Do you want me to go over the revenue a little bit? All right.
Sorry, can you just explain where the grants fit into this?
Where what?
Where the grants fit in?
They don't.
They don't fit into the general fund. They're separate of the $30 million number here.
Okay. So
I just like to put them there so we
They're
see the whole
outside of the
picture.
budget. So every dollar that we can offset by the use of a grant or anything in that lower section reduces a dollar that we have to go and put in the general budget.
Discretionary
Yeah.
spending.
So for us to,
But we don't know at the moment, so you can't include them because they're not.
they're never
Their
included.
projections.
They're different funding sources is what it is. Like they're never included in our operating budget for the general fund. Some of them, like the grants, we don't know what our allocations will be until, I don't know, July. So you're kind of guessing. But school choice, circuit breaker, those I can say we can use this much because those are revolving funds and I'll know what's in them at the end of the year. But basically what this does is offsets some of our total picture costs to make this number as low as it can be. If
So
that
for
makes
example,
sense.
Title I is paying for staff, so we
Yeah.
currently pay for 3 staff out of that. And so we know going in that we need at least a certain amount to be able to pay for that.
Title II and Title IV pay for a lot of professional development. Metco pays for some professional development and what else?
Oh, a lot, because we so used for all student supports.
Yeah, a lot of consulting, a lot of support for our Metco students. The IDEA grant,
Staffing.
most of it is paraprofessional salary, but there's some contracted services in there for kids that need like adaptive physical ed or PT. School choice can be used for just about anything. We generally use it for out of district tuition and a couple of staff salaries are in there. Circuit breaker is mainly out of district tuition. There's 2 para educators in there and 1 CODA. And then rural aid right now, there's 3 substantially separate special ed teachers paid out of that. So if those funds didn't exist, we'd have to try to get some of that into the general fund, but you can't fit all that in the general fund. I mean, you're talking a few $1 million there total.
How do they determine the allocations of like the different Title I, Title II?
The federal government allocates it based on like state population and need and things like that. And then they subgrant it to the state and then DESE allocates it to the districts.
So Title I is based a lot on high needs and poverty, families in poverty. So currently Powdermelon would consider Title I schools, so the grant funding is available.
Yeah, we
High
can't
school.
use it at the high school. Or the-
Yeah, why is that? Why is it that 2 of the 3 schools are considered, for all of the
Right, they
big
get-
towns? I don't,
Yeah, right, yeah,
I don't understand that.
yeah. No,
As a
it's
parent, I think that that's wrong, but
They're expensive regardless of age.
they're more.
our level of families in need is higher at the other 2.
But given
But,
everything that's happening
so-
in Washington, is it safe to even consider?
We will get some, yeah, absolutely. The federal government has reached a reconciliation package or whatever it is they call it, to fund grants next year. We just don't know what the allocation will be.
Even if DOE goes off?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because those are embedded in law. They're not
They're not,
completely in the executive branch. I mean, those are founded in law. So Congress would have to move to do that, and they're not going to. I mean, even Congress is made up of what Congress is made up of right now, but those people know darn well if they took that funding away, their states need it, and they know. So that's not going anywhere. The one that scares me is the IDEA one. I think if
I
any,
agree with you on that.
but I'm not freaking out. I'm just a little nervous if you take the temperature.
Aaron, random question, but how long have those 2 elementary schools been Title I?
so they only recently became school-wide. So in Title I, there's school-wide, and then there is where you have to go by student. And so when you hit a certain percentage, you can go to school-wide. So we just became school-wide in those 2 buildings 3 years ago, I think. So prior to that, they were targeted.
Which explains
Got
why
it.
the regional school is not school-wide.
Right, but
because-
eventually, given enough
It
years, if the same population moves through, what one would think. Okay, just
Okay.
curious.
But
If
when I
they-
began, we were targeted.
Got it, okay.
All right, just a couple of like minor, I guess, adjustments that were made. I predict about $84,000 of grant shortfalls, meaning like what we pay for out of the grants now, not all that funding will be there. So that has been moved to the general fund in that bottom line number. I added all that choice and charter tuition that came in way higher than we thought. And I removed 40,000 because we don't have an ice hockey team at this point. And the coaches, the rental fees for rinks, the transportation, that stuff adds up. Hockey's expensive. So I was able to remove that. I mean, it's, sad that
And we
there's
got
no
really
hockey
lucky
team,
that
but-
we've had everybody that wants to play hockey is able to play hockey with a different high school. And from my understanding, we got that at a financial deal.
we did.
So they're not.
And we're very
they're
thankful
not-
for
Yeah,
that.
they're not really charging us for that, which.
So are they going elsewhere? Are they going to
The co-oping Chicopee.
Yeah, they're co-oping with Chicopee. I mean, we're dealing with a numbers issue. We deal with it at the rec center every single year. Where are the kids? Where are the teams? How do we make it work? And hockey was fantastic here while we had the numbers in the co-op. But once the numbers go down to a certain point, you can't create they don't have 2v2 hockey teams up there. So we needed to try to find another option. So I'm glad that the kids that want to play are able to play. That was the biggest thing that we wanted to be able to do. So.
All right, so our current year's budget is 28,929,812. The proposed 27 budget is 30,383,805, or a 5.03% increase over this year. This does not include any additions. Our FTE total would be what it is right now. That's what this picture's painting, which is a level service budget. Lowering that figure would result in reductions, and that. Well, you recall last year, so that's
Right, so where we're at right now is every year, when we get to this point, we ask the district to look at, what are you doing? Do we need, we've got lowering numbers year over year over year. At a certain point, there opens up opportunities for adjustments in setups, potentially adjustment in teams, adjustments in curriculum that we offer, where there are potentially opportunities from a budgetary perspective to sit down and go, okay, are there any things that we can adjust without significantly impacting the educational output at the district? And we've done that. And we do have options available that could bring this down potentially what?
About
$500,000. So, because the other thing we got to remember is that our budget's up 5%. The towns are looking at another $500,000 that's there. So, from a prudent perspective, we need to ask those questions to find out what are the options are. We do have options available that we're going to present at the roundtable.
at the hearing, right?
Yeah. So we've got the public hearing. We're going to basically bring up what the options are.
And will that be the first time we as
No,
a
we- I mean,
will be
we
hearing
can-
that, or
we can
are
go over-
you able to go
we can
give
go
us those
over some of
options
them.
now?
I mean, I don't have them in here, but I mean, we've had conversations because obviously you can't be developing those types of plans with 2 days left before budget voting is gonna happen, The intent tonight was to, present the level service budgets and then, get feedback and then implement what we need to implement based on the feedback. I mean, I can give you more detail. If, I mean,
I mean, obviously, look, when you get into that spot, we're talking positions. Are there opportunities to restructure what we're doing without causing any detrimental effects? And that would cause a reduction in staffing. Yes, there's options that have been looked at, and we're looking at being able to present them at the roundtable when we go over all of them, when all the shareholders and stakeholders are there. We can certainly get, I don't have an issue with us sending out something to all the school committee members so we have a heads up so that you guys kind of know what we're looking
I
at.
mean, I would like to know what those are in
Yeah.
advance.
No, absolutely.
If now is not the time and place, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I don't
mind
know
meeting
whether
with any of you
it's one of those
guys.
things without having all the players in the right spot.
Yep.
Yeah.
To preemptively go over that
Yep.
I think would just create more of a challenge than benefit.
Yep.
I think we need to have one more leadership team meeting
Yeah.
with Superintendent Willard
Okay.
here just to solidify stuff before
Okay.
we
Yeah.
send that out.
Okay.
But I didn't
We
want
need-
everybody to
I
think
we
that we're.
need- no, oh,
Yes, no, go right ahead.
I think we need to look at what the minimum locals are gonna be
Yeah.
in the discretionary, so that you guys can all be thinking about what you want the discretionary to look like. So that's gonna give us a better idea of what types of cuts you think is for each of your communities.
Yeah, I mean, before you've seen
I-
the town assessments and
Yeah,
stuff
You
like
know,
that.
So we
for the
get all
people
that
that
stuff.
weren't here last year, there were some significant staffing cuts made at the regional school last year. And you know, there were negative consequences. So from my perspective, if we cannot make additional cuts and if we can find a level service budget, that's always my preference. But before I go on record saying that, I, you know, would like to
I
eventually
mean, it's.
hear more information, but I do know that there were some significant cuts last year.
Yes. But I think in fairness, we better make sure that the reason that most of those cuts were at the high school last year is because over the previous 2 to 3 years, we have gone through and sort of reorganized and reallocated resources at the elementary school, at Powder Mill, and last year it was at the high school. So it wasn't like they were picked on. It was, that's where the adjustments were able to be made based on all the previous adjustments that we had gone as the kids have sort of moved their way up. So it's not a point where it's like, okay, we're gonna go pick on the high school this year. That's where the opportunity was when you ask the questions about what's going on, what are we providing, where are there opportunities to relook at reorganizing, and are there opportunities when you look at that to be able to provide what the kids need, but we may be able to do it with a different number of teachers or number of roles that are there. So
To follow on to that, I mean, one question that I would have at a public meeting is 24 students decrease. Where is that kindergarten projected, or is it across the board?
It ends up being across, they don't,
yeah.
it ends up.
But you must
Remember,
have some
one grade
demographic
level.
analysis. that
Oh, yeah,
suggests-
but it is, it's a couple of
It's
students
spread
in each
throughout.
grade, spread throughout.
Yeah.
No,
But I
we of
think-
course have all the numbers at each grade and what that makes each class size depending on the number of sections we have.
But what might be telling is we have a lower number of kindergarten. Correct.
Yeah, this is our lowest.
That's
Yes, so
projected.
right now we have a low, we don't have the numbers for next year's kindergarten for sure. You know, we're just beginning that, however, we're starting to see the numbers come in, but our current kindergarten is very small.
And they don't do screening until like end of.
So it looks like that trend is gonna be continuing. And just to go back, I think we should mention that the finance committee, when we meet, we ask Nick and Jen to give us all sorts of scenarios.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Because we're also have to be respectful of our towns and our taxpayers.
Of course.
So, and I don't think anybody's picking on anybody.
No, at all. I mean, it was just last year, that was where the opportunity was. The couple of years before that, the adjustments were not at the high school. They were at other locations. So it's one of those things that it depends on what's on the ground. It gets assessed. And then the other thing that we did that was very specific, when we went through and we had identified the positions that were eliminated last year. I went through with the finance committee and we had everybody in here, and it was a very pointed question. Look, if we eliminate this position, is there going to be a detrimental effect to the students? And if there was, are we able to adjust it to make sure that it's, and with all of the answers except for one, the answer was no, we're okay. And the one that they said they weren't okay with, we put back in the budget. So it's not like anytime that comes up, it's not re-looked at and re-reviewed. So it is a pretty district, like a tight policy, and it does get reviewed before it's not just thrown together and here we go.
And the bottom line, it's up to the school committee
Absolutely.
of all the people here to make that decision.
Yeah. All right. What else we got, Nick?
All right, the revenues in a little more detail. You can see the minimum local goes back up. The chapter 70 The chapter 70 is only about 89. The reason why this figure is there is because the FY26 budget revenue is based on that number. But when the state doubled the per pupil minimum, it went up. So if you're looking at it from budget to budget, it looks like it's going up that much. But if you're going actual FY26,
Going down.
it's only about 89,000. It's not much. Medicaid reimbursement, I'm shooting a little low because that's another federal government thing that I don't know what's going to happen with. We already mentioned the transportation reimbursement. Charter school reimbursement will go up a bit because there's more kids. I propose to only use 650 in E&D. We certified 936. This current year we used 9. We can't use 9 again because then we literally have $36,000 left in E&D, and that would freak me out. 650 I can be comfortable with. I mean, we obviously don't know what we're going to certify this year until the year's over. I can project that in the summer, but I ran an expenditure report before this meeting just to see what was left of our budget for this current year. We have 39.8 or something percent of it left. And just to compare it last year, I ran a last year budget report with the exact dates from the beginning of the fiscal year and we had 40.1. So we're like neck and neck as to where we were last year. That makes me feel pretty good. Local tuition staying the same. That's pre-K tuition. Fee charges are going down because of the no hockey team. Those user fees were higher than the other sports. Capital goes up a bit again because we borrowed this year. Transportation assessment goes up, but minimally. And most of that is the homeless transportation. Building use, that's just the Southwick assessment. And then the VOC transportation is the assessment for Southwick and Granville to bus the students to Smith and WTA, provided the towns want to keep that arrangement. I haven't heard anything bad about it this year. I think it's working well. I know Granville last year wanted to kind of look at their options, but I mean, you're not going to find anything cheaper than that. So I added that as an assessment into the next year's budget just to cover those two buses. However, the other number you want to pay attention to on here is the almost $2.1 million gap between projected revenue and expenses, which, is when difficult discussions begin. Amanda, could you just move the
Can you go back to the top right-hand corner?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Read that.
So you can see the enrollment over time, and then the contributions for each town. So Southwick goes up 471, 698. Granville goes up 137, 307 for your additional 10 kids.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that.
And then Tallinn goes down another 27 because Tallinn lost I think 3 students between this year and next year. So you add all that together, you get your 581. Over time, I mean, if you look, historically, the required local minimum goes up quite a bit every year. So when you build a budget, you're thinking about 500,000 more than the prior year. Last year, not only did we not get that, we lost 300. So that's an $800,000 swing right there. And you can't dig your way out of that overnight, which is why that revenue gap is so high. It's because the expenses don't go down, they go up. And if the revenue's not going up proportionately, you end up in some trouble. This is what the town assessments would look like with the level service budget. Southwick's would be about 9.26% higher than this year, or a total of 15,738,432. Tallinn's goes down 2.87%, to 387,564, and Granville's goes up 13%, to $2,376,046. So that's what that picture would look like based on our regional agreements formulas. If the budget remains level serviced. All right, the why. So what explains the revenue gap? So these are, pretty much all of the expenses that explains that. The debt service, again, because we borrowed this year. With the 8% health insurance increase, you're looking at about 176,000 additional for that. The delta between what we can use in E&D, school choice, rural aid, and circuit breaker, if you add all that together, that's almost 300,000 that we can't put in revolving funds. And that's with increasing circuit breaker all the way up to 800,000. C-Tech tuition is up 94,000. Personnel cost increases, that's almost 709 based on the current collective bargaining agreements that we have, that do not include food service employees. Your grant shortfalls, I referenced that number earlier. That's what that looks like, adding it to the budget. Adding the additional SRO to proportion the costs based on the regional agreement to the 3 towns would, I estimate, be about 50,649, although the police are currently negotiating their contracts, so it's kind of hard to tell what their salaries are going to be next year. School choice tuition goes up 195. There are some testing materials that we used to have in ESSER funds, I believe. I don't know if Aaron, you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, just a bunch of resources that we've used as ESSER funds back when COVID hit, and all of those funds. We were pretty good about buying 3-year contracts when we could to try to put that off. So those 3-year contracts are coming up. So now we need to start building some of this back in to our budget, especially if we want to be using MTSS in 7, 8, and 9, and really being able to predict what student needs are going to be.
Charter tuition goes up because there's now 10 students instead of 7 a year ago. And then the Hampden County retirement pension assessment's up about 117, and that's your retirement for all non-professionally licensed employees. So you add all that together, it's almost 1.9 million, which pretty much explains the revenue gap there. Any questions about this before I move on?
Nick, the additional SRO is our second SRO, not a third.
No, correct. Yeah, the second. Yeah. Some of the most significant increases out of district special ed tuition, which I referenced constantly. The homeless transportation I mentioned earlier, the personnel cost increases, the health insurance, that number is actually a little bit lower. It's correct on the previous slide. I just didn't fix it here. I based it off 10% because that's what we were looking at, but the numbers actually came in at 8. So pay attention to what's in the Y chart. That number is a little higher than it should be. This is what our grant and revolving funds, picture looks like. Currently, we have almost 25 FTEs in grants and revolving accounts. That's almost 1.3 million in salary right there, and different funding sources. The total grant shortfall, I believe, is almost 116. I popped 84 of it into the general fund. I put the rest in school choice because I thought increasing that would a little bit would be okay. And then this is just a little chart, the projected revenue of each of these revolving funds tied to the projected expenses. So as you can see, we're spending more than we're taking in. I mean, our school choice revenue went down $56,000 in a matter of 2 weeks. On the cherry sheet, it was 771. DESE pops a preliminary thing out in their Dropbox, around this time of the year. I open it up and it's way less. What the heck? So I emailed the school choice people from DESE. I said, what happened? And excuse me, I'm talking too much. They told me they think they miscalculated our special ed increment, which, most kids, it's 5,000 for them to come here, but students that require special ed services, there's, based on what they're getting, the districts will have to pay more. I mean, if you've got an out of district placed kid that's school choicing here, we would get reimbursed for their whole tuition by their sending town. We don't have that, but I mean, some kids it's 25,000, believe it or not, but they think they overestimated that. So I said, well, what am I supposed to budget for revenue here? I got to balance my budget. Mm-hmm. So, she told me to go with the lower one, the 715. So I said, okay.
That was a tough decision for her.
Sure she thought about it long and hard. I really do like her, so to her credit, but it was a discrepancy that I was like, what is this? Circuit breaker, I think we'll bring in about 600 next year, but we've got the money, so spending 821 does not make me sweat. And then again, the rural aid is, I want to go low. The 3 salaries of the teachers in there would equate to that, so pretty much even. And then capital is our last. The boiler's coming next year. The estimate's 600,000. I don't have a better number from the company doing the design study yet. I've emailed her a couple times. It should be in release. I'm hoping by the public hearing I'll have a number. But that was kind of the estimate that we've been going with anyway. And I believe we'll try to 10-year bond that to ease the burden on the towns, because that in 5 years is a lot. Which means we're going to have to write the warrant articles probably separately, right? Because if the track is reappearing, because as we know, that didn't occur this year.
Yeah.
That's going to be a 5-year gig.
Yeah.
So I don't know if 2 separate warrant articles would be proper there, or if we write the articles differentiating the bond term, but put it in one article. I don't know how you want to do it. I guess we can have that conversation later.
We've got time.
Yeah, we've got time.
We can probably reach out to legal and find out how to do it. We can touch base with the town.
So I would like DOR to tell me what to do, because they were the ones.
We're hearing a request that it might be smarter to do separate. So we'll figure it out.
Okay, well, yeah.
It is, right? It just makes it
Yeah.
neat and clean.
Yeah.
All right. I think, that does it. Again, thank you all for your committed, continued commitment to our students and giving them the resources they need to succeed. And then I guess the last would be any final questions.
About how we left the track last year. That was the exploratory project. That 192,000 that had to come out.
Yeah, we just decided to defer the project until next year, because the borrowing, the way the warrant article was worded, did not satisfy what the Department of Revenue wanted. So
if you remember, it was of that 192,000, I believe about 100 of it was going to come from Southwick's community preservation, right? But then there was confusion with regard to how that worked, and I guess the offshoot or the outcome was that we couldn't use one town's CPC money to offset the entire project, that money could offset their percentage cost of it. Am I explaining it?
yes, to follow the regional agreement, that 100,000 needs to offset the town of Southwick's portion of that project, not the entire project. Is basically what that boiled down to. And when, we were getting late in the game here and we needed to get this design study done. But the problem is when we sent the updated warrant articles, you got to wait 60 days unless the towns are going to have a special meeting, which we knew they weren't, because that's cost prohibitive, right?
So in order to get it fixed, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So what we'll do this year is we're going to put through a capital request for the entire amount of 192,000.
Plus the 600,000.
Plus
So a total of close to $800,000 request.
It's an $800,000 request. Yep.
And that's in addition to this.
That's in addition.
Yeah, but you won't, that's just borrowing. Basically, when you vote the capital plan, you give us permission to borrow that money, and then it gets paid back over the duration of the bond, which then appears on the budget summary sheet under debt service. Yeah, interest is in that debt service number.
Right.
But rates are going down, luckily.
So the one thing I just want to, obviously we get 2 new people here from last year. Over the 5 years that I've been on the committee, we have been getting better and better at budgeting. We're getting better and better at actually using the amount of money that we've got and When you do that, the problem is if we set a budget for a certain line item, let's say they're gonna have $100,000. And they only end up using 50. Well, super. Unlike out in the federal government, they'll just go and use that money until it's gone because then they're gonna lose it. Well, if we have 100,000 identified and they only use 50, that extra 50 goes into E&D. So we have what the towns would call free cash. We have 3 accounts that really falls into: school choice, circuit breaker, and E&D. Now, problem we have, and we've warned the towns about this for the last 5 years, is that as we become better and better at budgeting, you're going to get less and less money that's replenishing the E&D, circuit breaker, and the school choice. So that's why Nick was showing that it's down $300,000. Well, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can either have a ballooned budget where you build in money that's going to automatically go to E&D, or you budget appropriately, which is what we've been doing. And when we deal, the nice thing that we've been able to successfully do for a long period of time is that we still have enough money in there that when we get hit with the unexpected charge for this or something that doesn't go right in the budget, we have not in, I don't know how long, it's got to be 10 years plus, if not more than that, have never had to go back to the towns for a supplementary ask because the budget that we passed was off, because something we got hit with that we didn't get. So we've been able to absorb any sort of extra charges, extra kids that are going to school choice, extra special ed costs that come up during the year. And that's why we've got E&D and we've got school choice and we've got circuit breaker. But as we get, I would expect 3-4 years, we're going to get to a point where that $800,000 that we're pulling out of school choice and E&D and whatever that's offsetting the budget is going to end up having to hit the towns because we won't have it. So it's one of those, you get penalized for doing a good job, but it's fair from a taxpayer perspective because we don't want to be taxing them or charging them anything more than we need. And when we get to that point, we'll have to deal with it from a real reality perspective. But I just want to make sure people understand that because it is a weird concept from a budget perspective that you literally have extra money. We're not associated with the towns. So it doesn't go back to the general fund. We keep it, but we use it every year to offset the assessments for all 3 of the towns.
Yeah, the irony is the better you are at it, the worse position it puts you in against emergencies that pop up. You wanna balance respecting the taxpayers' dollars with making sure that you can cover.
And emergencies do always come up.
Of course, yeah.
You know, I mean, just students move in. Students have needs that we don't anticipate that are beyond and, you know.
Yeah, because we're going to have to figure out probably next year what those bottom line thresholds numbers are that we do not want to go down below to allow us to deal with emergencies.
The other thing is stuff breaks.
Yeah.
You know, like a heater. Yeah. Yeah.
So we got to be real careful with that. Anybody have any other questions? It was a lot. Thank you, Nick. You did a very good job.
You did an excellent. Thank you.
All right. What do we got up next? Superintendent's not here. Do we have a report? Or are we good? Okay. You don't have another piece of.
You've heard enough of me.
That was it.
Public comment. You guys here for public comment? Or you just here for just for fun on Monday night? Okay. Oh, we know that. I know. I'm just. I never know. Oh, you usually.
She always do. Always.
And we got everything corrected now on that side, I believe, with the zooming and the getting posted and everything, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So no public comment. Policies. We don't have any updates on policies.
No, do we have a meeting?
I don't know. We gotta.
It's not one.
No.
You gotta get Liz back in here before she retires. We're
Yeah,
close
we
to the
do.
I'm
end.
gonna hit redial.
No. She's at a meeting. Yeah. But yeah, so
We
we'll
gotta
have to
get one
get this. We'll have to get this set up.
Okay.
Okay. So, old business, superintendent search. So, I wanted Liz to talk to us tonight in anticipation for this item that we want to talk about this evening. We are in a very, very unique position that we have got a heads up that our superintendent is looking to retire essentially at the end of next year. So we have, and we've heard from Liz, that internal candidates, if we've got somebody good, that's a great way to be able to not slow down with our progress, makes everything a little easier if you've got somebody potentially who's qualified and is able to hit the ground running, and we can make sure that they're set up for success. The nice thing, the position that we're in right now, and what I'd like to propose we start and take a vote on here in a little bit to move forward on, is an option where we do not lose any options out there as to what we ultimately want to do, but it opens up a possibility for us that we could take advantage sooner than later. We've got obviously internal candidates that we want to see if there's any out there. And then we've got an option of external candidates. What I'd like to propose that we do is open up the opportunity for internal candidates that are interested in the superintendent role to apply for the position in the month of March. What that will allow us to do is that gets us through budget. And then potentially what we do is in April, we have just like we would if we were replacing a principal or whatever, we get a select group of school committee members with a couple parents, some teachers. We interview those internal candidates on a subcommittee type level. Have some open sort of nights like Liz was talking about for the community to be able to come in and meet some of those candidates, the ones that the sort of subcommittee says, okay, we're potentially looking to be able to bring those to the school committee, because we don't bring them to the superintendent. Those candidates for superintendent come to us, and that interview is public and it is with us. So potentially we could do that in April. And then in May, have some more meetings, have some open houses, stuff like that, where then the final candidates that the subcommittee kind of says, okay, they're looking good. They can come to the full school committee for an interview. That does not mean that we need to accept or hire those one or two candidates that come forward. Gives us an opportunity to do that. If we feel that the candidate is right, that's got the right information, that's got the right training, that we feel will be able to move forward, then we have an opportunity to be able to hire that person now, put them into what they would call a superintendent-elect position. Depending on their job title, we're certainly not looking to have to hire an extra person. They could then shadow, learn from Jen for the complete next year. And then when Jen retires, that person just slides right into that superintendent role and moves forward. If we get to the interviews in May and we as a school committee determine that that person is not the person that we want to move forward with, then that opens up the door of going externally. And then we obviously have a decision whether we want to go, whether we have masks involved. But we've got an opportunity now to be able to investigate what we have and who we have internally without really giving up anything. We can go down this road, get to the point where we do the interviews, and then we can decide whether we want to pull the trigger and bring them on board into that role, or we can decide as a committee whether we want to go external. Does that make sense? Questions, comments, concerns?
Wes,
Yes, sir.
go ahead.
There you go first.
All right. Do we have a set of criteria?
Job description.
Right, a job
I'm sure
description.
we have a job description.
Do-
We have a job description for superintendent, don't we?
Now the next question is.
Yeah.
Do we know how many people in our school system even qualify? That would meet the criteria to apply?
Do I know the total number of people right now? No. If we look, here's the thing, at every step of this process that I just outlined, if we open it up to internal candidates,
Yeah.
Betsy's obviously going to be involved. Do they qualify? Do they have the criteria? If we get to a point where you open it up internally and there's nobody that's qualified, then that makes this decision real simple. We're going to have to go external.
Well, I guess my question is like, are we looking for a certain number of potential candidates before moving forward? Like, for example, do we know if we have more than one
Yeah.
internal qualified candidate? And then if we do, are we looking for a certain number to have for the first level interviews, like before we move from the March to April timeframe, right?
Not necessarily.
And like, what do we do if we have one?
What are we doing?
Like, what do
So
we
if we-
do?
So if we have, obviously, we're gonna either have one or more than one, right?
Right.
So if we have one and we have a subcommittee that has 2 or 3 school committee members, couple parents, couple teachers, we interview 1 or more people,
Mhm.
just like we've done with all the other interviews. We go through that and that group kind of says, okay, who do we want to, what we normally do is who do we want to present to the superintendent to take a look at a second level? We would do that exact same process for us. If there's only one, we interview the one. If there's 2, we interview the 2. If during that interview process, we get to the point, we have a discussion, okay, well, one of them is qualified, one of them's ready, we want to bring that person forward, the other one isn't, or they both are, then what we do is we take them to step 2.
Second question.
Yeah.
All right. She had talked about 300 hours of preparation.
I think that's if they're,
Correct.
go ahead.
Let me follow up. Does that mean we're opening this up to other people that don't particularly have the qualifications right now, but we would be willing to invest the 300 hours in them?
Like,
If-
isn't
if
that the
they're-
purpose of
if they're-
creating a superintendent elect?
Well, yes and no, because one option would be that. Okay, is if you've got a candidate that, let's say, does not have their certificate, they could, if we decided to move forward with that person, then that would give them the opportunity to get their hours during that year. So I guess the answer would be yes.
All right, so go ahead. It's your turn.
Well, I was gonna ask, isn't there another cost like the stipend that they mentioned for the shadow?
Correct.
Well, that's,
Do we know what that cost is?
that would be a cost that we would determine. So let's, go ahead, Russ, you've got another question, I can see it.
Well, no, I guess it's getting late, so I'm gonna be very blunt right now.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of unknown. I'm not against this. Don't get me wrong. And I think we got some qualified people here. I'd love to promote somebody from within.
Yeah.
Okay, don't get me wrong. But I think there's a lot of unknown factors here. I'm not comfortable making a vote tonight. I would make a
Okay.
motion to table this.
all right,
Let's get it out there into the public. We got a couple of teachers there. They're gonna spread the word.
yeah.
Let's find out, get some feedback on this.
I mean, we've got
So
time
that
to do
the
that.
transparency is there.
Can you also share the job description or the criteria? Because it's
Yeah.
very hard for me to picture how anybody can assess somebody's fitness without knowing what the criteria are. And if it's, you must have a master's degree, that's kind of black and white, but if it's something else that's
Right.
more subjective, then it's going to be
Right.
much more
Or
complicated.
do we set minimums like a master's or a doctorate?
Yeah, just-
And then preferred and then lower it, something like that.
Well, what we certainly could do, and I'm not opposed to that, that's why I wanted to bring it up now, so
Okay.
we've got time. I don't want to try to do this like in the middle of April and go, okay, we've got to try to figure this out, and we got like.
You're
a day to
absolutely
do
correct.
this.
You're doing a great
The
job.
point to bring it up tonight was to see what we want to do. Is everybody open to the possibility of us doing this? We just want to have some more I's dotted and T's crossed and figure out how to do it. And get job descriptions and, because what I think might be helpful is that Superintendent Willard will be at the next meeting. We can get her to sort of come and she can I think would be more than capable of being able to put this in front of us to say, okay, here's what the job description is. Here's what we would do. Here's how we could look at this. We certainly still have time to be able to do that between now and the end of the school year. Yeah,
I think to Russ's point as well about making sure that we get community feedback. I think that, I completely agree with Russ. I'm not at all opposed to this. And I also believe that if we have a qualified internal candidate, absolutely, they already have an advantage over anybody else.
Yeah.
However, a concern of mine that will always be there will be to make sure that not just the person that is selected, but also the greater community as a whole, is confident that that person earned the position against all options and wasn't just handed the position. And I think that that is a very important objective that I think is on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, both within the school communities and in the general public. So I think that whatever we do, we need to make sure that we take our job seriously, and that we make sure that our selected candidate feels that they've really truly earned that position. And that our
Yeah, no, I mean, that part of what I said is you have open houses, opportunity for people to be able to come in to be able to just satisfy that exact option.
But if we don't have more than one candidate, then that's the concern that I have.
Okay, so if we only
And
have
serve
one
some
candidate, okay, and they're qualified, and we have open houses, and people from the community come in, and they're able to get feedback, and we get feedback from people internally as to whether that person or persons would be able to fill the role. The danger, and I hear you, but the alternative is the only other way to get other people would be to do an external search, which delays it, which puts us in a position that if you've got an internal candidate that is looking for a superintendent role, and we already heard from Liz that, and that's why I wanted her on the phone. We're not dealing with a situation right now where there's 45 different external candidates that are viable out there. Now, the one thing she didn't say, because I wouldn't expect her to say, is that she told me that the external candidates that are left, she wouldn't be recommending any of them for us. So if we've got an internal candidate and we can put them in a position to succeed, and they go through the gauntlet and they do a subcommittee check, and we've got open houses and we've got everything going on, and they come in front of us and they go through an interview process, by no means can I consider that as being handed to anybody. And if we've got somebody that's able to do that role and we want to pull the trigger, the opportunity to give them a leg up so that at the end of next year that they can have a really smooth transition. If there's no real viable people out there, and it's not me making that call, we're dealing with our representative from MASC that we trust that does this and has done it for a number of districts. I'm certainly leaning towards that's not as big a risk as it would be if we find out that there's 45 real viable people out there, and we might want to be real careful with what we do.
But to follow on Pam's point, what is the downside of just having an open posting
Well,
job?
If we open it now, the problem is if we open it now and we bring in an external candidate, nobody's waiting a year for the job. And we as a committee can't hire somebody on board for an extra position for $100,000 to bring them in early. If we have an internal candidate that can do the role, and at the end of the day, if we have to go down a stipend route, we're looking at maybe somewhere between $10,000 to $20,000 as a stipend to do this, where they're able to do their role, learn from the superintendent, and if we don't have to do an external search, there's $10,000 that we're saving right there. So it basically costs us $10,000. We don't have to, but then we've got somebody that's going to have to do this here at the district.
Well, I know, but also, like, when we do the boiler thing, right, didn't we have to get, 3 bids? Don't we always have to get so many bids for those types of things?
For the boiler, that'll be a bid process.
Or don't you have to get some, in that instance, I just
Yes.
used an example, like, you have
Yeah.
to get so many, right?
Yeah. The point is to go.
More than one choice.
Exactly. And I think I think that
almost shows
community
that
is going to
we're-
demand more than one.
Right, exactly, that's one.
That's just my perspective. I also want to point out that while it would be amazing to do a superintendent elect, Liz even said it's extremely rare. And that, that
Well, she says she did, and we can certainly bring her back. I've had this discussion with her. It's extremely rare because most districts are not in a position where they have an opportunity to do this. It's not extremely rare because it's not suggested that if you have the opportunity, she will certainly tell you that if you have a chance to do that, It is a great, and she even mentioned that, if you've got a chance to do this, it's a great way to move forward.
Given the concerns, and I know we can table this for next time, but
Yep.
is there a way of just like playing with the dates? So you start the search a little bit later, you have it open and for, internal candidates, and then decisions are made next, January. So then maybe you can keep somebody external around for 4
That's a good
months.
question. I don't know.
And an internal person could also then get the stipend for
Yeah.
4 months and still get a lot of on-job training.
Accumulate their hours, the 300 that they might need,
I mean, that's 10 weeks.
right? Anybody coming in might need that.
Well, yeah, if they did,
Right,
but
right.
I guess the thing is, if they do that, then you'd have to, if they did it in, let's say they needed somebody that needed 300 hours.
Right.
You would then have to move them into the role.
But at
So,
that
I mean,
point,
it's one of those, and again, I mean, this is why we wanted to have the discussion.
And it's a
Go-
good idea.
Going down this right now. And even doing it. The open-ended sort of thing that I sort of set up does not lock us in to anything. We're not locked into anything. It's not like you have to do it. We don't know how many internal candidates we have until we actually open the thing up.
Right, and that was my whole purpose of tabling and making the motion.
Oh,
to
yeah,
table.
yeah.
Because I think we need a job description, we need
Yeah.
to find out, and I think we gotta, I know, if they don't have the license already, we're talking
Right.
about 300, are we gonna consider people? Like.
I mean, and that would be a
I
great
mean-
question for the superintendent that we have right now.
And
She
I think we need to
basically
answer all those questions ahead of time before we make any decision.
Agree, and I mean, it's. The one thing I'll tell you, and I certainly am involved with this now. Hiring qualified candidates and finding qualified candidates out there right now is extremely difficult.
I'm gonna say this.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, somebody said that same thing, that we weren't gonna be finding a business manager and financial person.
Mhm.
And said there was nobody out there. Now I think we got one of the best one in Western Mass.
Totally agree with
And
that.
I mean that with all due respect,
I hear you.
Mhm.
It's,
Like you won't know unless you ask.
Yeah.
Fourth time's a charm.
For some.
Yeah.
One thing about the 1 year, just, the Mass, which is the Massachusetts Association of Superintendents, does an induction program that lasts a year. So the districts I know that I've talked about that have gone in this direction, they put their candidate into that induction program for that full year, as opposed to doing it when they're hired. So you have a person who's gone through that in advance of it, and that is a big piece, as opposed to having them do it while they're on the job.
So are they taken on as like a salaried employee at that point?
No, it's the induction program is something you travel to, so it's like a professional development.
basically paid.
But it's monthly.
Coach,
You
too.
have a, but it's, so it's allows that person to do all of that
that's
coaching.
part of why they set them up with the stipend. They do
Right.
that
Yeah.
kind of role.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So that
Because
is
it's
big.
additional work beyond there.
Yes. Mhm.
All right, so we're gonna table this for the next meeting. Jen will be here, we'll be able to get some information, we'll certainly get a job description, I'll let Betsy.
I already emailed her.
Okay.
I'll get it to you as soon as she
Okay.
sends it to me.
All right, so what do we got next? Action items. What do we have? Just the consent agenda?
Yes. Move
Like,
to
if
approve
you
consent
wanna-
agenda
you wanna do it?
items as listed above.
Can I get a motion?
Oh, so moved. Sorry.
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda? All right, let the record show the motion passes 6-0. All right, in the sake of time, does anybody have anything from a subcommittee perspective that needs to be brought forward?
Got our first meeting
Oh, of course.
Wednesday.
Oh, for capital?
For capital.
Is there what?
No.
Wellness?
Oh,
Is that ever happening?
No, wellness, they are still redoing the wellness plan, so our wellness coach has not gotten to the point where she wants the whole committee yet.
Not seeing anything.
Yeah, no, it meets quarterly, so we have done mini meetings with her from Boston, and so there's a small group that have done them. But no, we've only done the small ones until it is, the new plan is written.
Just so we're clear, finance subcommittee moving from tomorrow to the 19th.
Okay.
Okay, good, I was gonna ask.
Yeah, there's no reason.
well, no, because
Yeah.
he's not gonna have any new information.
Nothing
Right
gonna
now.
happen. It's
So,
gonna go.
And Aaron, LT starts at 3:30.
It's like our snow day.
3:40 for teachers from Woodland.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but we'll see with the weather.
Yeah, I was just looking at, well, not that I was.
Yeah.
Can you email that to me too?
So is it- we supposed to get
Yeah,
it
it's
tomorrow?
I see snowing.
Yeah, but in the afternoon, so like.
Like I was just looking at the hour of the
Rain at night.
from
Yeah.
noon
They're warm.
right through like 8, 9 p.m. But it's just.
So we'll see if we have to do it.
And no Wednesday.
Finance.
All right, we got anything else for subcommittees? All right, new business?
One quick thing, Amanda, are you responsible for our Facebook page?
No, ma'am.
So,
Yeah, I do a lot of it.
well, I was going to say I've noticed a lot more Facebook presence. So whoever is responsible
Then,
for that, it's been noticed.
Yes, I've been trying to step up the Facebook presence and try to help tell the district story in our own way. Kind of putting out a mixture of things kids are doing, but also some pieces, bigger picture of what's happening in the district so that people kind of get a mixture. And we're trying to interact more. So, yeah,
Well done.
thank you.
One quick thing, Mr. Chairman, very important, that I think everybody should know that Friday is no homework day, National No Homework Day. And I would just like,
You up to this?
no, it's on the calendar, it's official, and I was hoping he would be here tonight to make that
We need to
announcement.
take a vote.
I just think just follow through and go, that it should be on record that it's National No Homework Day, Friday, March 6th.
How we do it out? I have lost it.
See what we will.
All right.
There we go.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna make sure
You
that
gonna
I
connect to
make
the
a
capital
deal on
committee?
that.
No homework?
Thank you, Pam.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right, let the motion stand. If was approved 6-0-0. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Good job.
Job it.